So I want to talk about something I saw recently on Twitter, and it was an employment lawyer who was doing a discovery online, which is for the non-lawyers in the audience when you ask witness questions. And in the middle of the discovery, on camera, the witness got up and started going to the bathroom. Throughout, he continued to answer questions, although apparently he would not answer the question, "Are you going to the bathroom right now?" So Karima, this wasn't your case. But if it was, what do you do in that situation?
Well, I'd be pretty pissed. I honestly, the fact that the camera was on, I think makes it all the more troublesome. I think, I probably would want to call for a break or a recess, and that's probably going to damage the transcript the least amount. Let's go off the record for a moment. Not so simple to do in court, though.
So, Ryan, what would you do? And just so our viewers know, as Karima mentioned, these discoveries are transcribed. So I am kind of wondering what the transcript of this discovery is going to look like.
Well, it's going to look like an absolute mess, potentially after almost like what that bathroom might look like if you were, doing this during the context of an examination. But, I would say if it was my witness, I'd be thinking in my head, the case has gone down the toilet, literally and frankly, figuratively as well. If it was my witness, I'd be calling, just for a break to go off the record. Whether or not counsel would grant that is another thing entirely. And if I was the examining lawyer, I just continue to examine, but I wouldn't ask that question first about whether or not you're in the bathroom. I want to say, sir, it looks like you're in the bathroom, and then just lay out a whole series of questions to lay the traps. That the witness is in a position of vulnerability at that point. They're not fully concentrating on the questions, and if I was cross-examining that individual, instead of trying to get off the record, I'd stay on, continue to examine them, and hopefully get some admissions that might not be too helpful to their case.
Always strategizing, Ryan. That's why you're such a great lawyer. So Karima, have you encountered any of your own kind of Zoom fails? What's the most ridiculous thing that you've seen in Zoom discovery or in Zoom court?
Well, I think that Zoom court wasn't really prepared for the amount of interest in some of the anti-lockdown cases. And in particular, some of the interest comes from fans who can be a little bit passionate and maybe not so on top of court decorum. So in one of the Adam Skelly cases, we had people who logged on with sort of all sorts of offensive or not necessarily offensive names, but, there is no justice, like things like that in the courtroom, kind of unmuting themselves to chime in with the judge. And in fact, the judge herself couldn't join initially because the courtroom was at capacity. So there was this negotiation, and I think one of the lawyers, the lead lawyers, also was stuck in the waiting room. So it was maybe more of a technical glitch, but kind of amusing to see sort of a circus in the courtroom.
I actually had a similar case like that. We were involved in a major public quarantine hotel case, and there were, I think, 400 guests in the Zoom room at one point, and when the Crown started making their arguments, someone was able to unmute themselves and whistled through the first 5 minutes of the Crown's submissions, which I have to say is not helpful for your side. If you're doing this to distract the Crown, it is not helping, so do not do that. Ryan, how about you? What have you seen in Zoom court or in these Zoom discoveries?
But a similar situation to what you described, Christine. I was actually observing a fairly prominent case because it related to a case in which I'm involved on behalf of my clients. And during the morning break, it appeared that the registrar had not muted any of the members of the public who had come to appear. And there were dozens, if not hundreds, of members of the public. And you could hear them on the audio commenting on the quality of the judge, the quality of counsel, and making some, very pointed remarks about them. And I also don't think they realized that they were on join audio. Some of them who started chiming in, I don't think they did, because you could hear washrooms in the background because they were taking their morning break as well. So it was this was interesting, and the registrar just, I don't know, didn't realize and didn't mute everyone, and you could hear this going on. I just hopeful that the judge and the lawyers had gone and taken their morning break and muted. So that's sort of one of the more humorous instances that I've seen during COVID times.
When we are back, we're going to talk about some more of these entertaining stories.